Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for dropping by this video. A warm welcome. This channel is dedicated to helping people understand the difference between actual non-duality, and specifically Advaita Vedanta, and watered down, delusional, incomplete non-duality called Neo-Advaita or Neo-Non-Duality or Pseudo-Non-Duality, and specifically the process of how to extricate yourself from Neo-Advaita. So about 2 weeks ago, I had a pretty big breakthrough. I just inwardly and mentally, I said to myself, oh, everything I was taught by Neo-Advaita teachers, it's actually not true. It's actually not a genuine teaching. They are not teachers. And I just inwardly, I just kind of put it all aside. It's very profound. And just as I think about it and do it again in this moment, wow, it's so profound to just literally set it aside, to differentiate it. Oh, that's actually just not even a teaching. Not only is it not true, it's not a valid spiritual teaching, and they're not teachers. I don't quite have the words for the relief that my soul feels when I do this. Because it's a letting go, right? It's a very profound letting go. And it's also setting a boundary of, I'm a full no. Now, this is a little tricky because sometimes they would say things that were genuine, helpful, that were authentic non-duality. But part of this setting aside is saying, they're not my source for anything. They have no authority for me anymore. And it's kind of like a starting over, because that's what I had to do, is to really start over, because I had taken in all these beliefs that were just wrong. And so I say starting over, but I wish the process were that simple. So I've talked about this many times. For me, there's this unwinding of all the Neo-Advaita nonsense, all the weird, twisted teachings, because there's so many of them, and they go in so deep, because Neo-Advaita teachings literally reprogram. They did for me, and I think they do for most people. They reprogrammed my sense of what's real, of myself, my definition of myself, the meaning of life, my relationship with desire, my definition of God. So let's think about that. Definition of God, of the fundamental nature of life, the meaning of life, my definition and understanding of myself, my relationship, and my relationship to desire. So these are all very primal aspects of what it is to exist, to have an idea of God, to have a sense of a meaning of life, to have a definition of self, to have a relationship with desire, and then to kind of encapsulate it. Like, what's the most important thing? So Neo-Advaita gave me, and I would say probably gives everyone, false and delusional definitions for each of those things. And those things are so primal, they're so fundamental. I often liken it to sexual orientation. Just think for a moment about your sexual orientation, whether you're heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, somewhere on that spectrum. It's a very primal aspect of who and what you are. And it really defines a big part of how you navigate life. And so Neo-Advaita takes something as primal and fundamental as that, and then reprograms it in a twisted, dysfunctional way. So this this inner attitude of just setting aside all the teachings and all the teachers. It's very powerful. And it's like I want to do it every day. Like it's a great way to start the day. But there's also the unwinding of the specific untruths. For example, for a long time, for the last couple of years, I've started to feel the desire to do performance dance. And I've been doing it on my own. I've taken some classes, taken some lessons. But I have this thought, well, to put all that time and energy into actually doing a performance, like that's a waste of time. That's meaningless. I should focus on more spiritual things. I've had variations of that thought. Well, that's Neo-Advaita at work. Okay, Neo-Advaita says everything about this world is meaningless. Whereas traditional Advaita Vedanta says each of us in our process of moving towards oneness, we each have a specific dharma. The technical word is svadharma. We each have a specific duty, role, gift, and multiple roles and gifts to contribute to society. And that identifying those gifts and abilities and then offering them to the world in a way that contributes to the world, and simultaneously having the idea of offering that gift as a service to God, not just as a service to society, but to do it from this place of serving our maker, serving the maker of all that is. It's a fundamental aspect of traditional Advaita. In fact, I have the great privilege and honor to be studying right now with a traditional Advaita Swamini, a female Swami. And she says you cannot do Advaita without understanding and practicing Dharma and Bhagavan. Bhagavan means having a personal relationship with God. Now, Neo-Advaita hates the idea of a personal God and having a relationship with God. Neo-Advaita would say that's meaningless and ridiculous. And yet, traditional Advaita Vedanta understands the human condition and understands the process by which we can free ourselves or be freed from that. And part of it is having a personal devotional relationship with our maker, with the maker. And I'm not going to get into all the various definitions. I'm not a guru. I'm more just trying to point people in the right direction towards traditional Advaita. So these things are completely foreign to Neo-Advaita, and they're completely central to traditional Advaita. And so without this notion of Dharma, we have no compass. And then this war comes up. So see, traditional Advaita looks to the Bhagavad Gita and says, any desire you have that's in alignment with Dharma, with harmony, with righteousness, is God and is from God. Neo-Advaita says, eliminate desires. Eliminate all your desires except for liberation, except for enlightenment. So I've said it before and I will say it again. They're two different teachings. Neo-Advaita steals some language from traditional Advaita, but they are fundamentally two separate teachings. So I think that's all I have to share. Wow, 4 live viewers. Hi, everybody. If anyone has any comments or questions, feel free to type them in. So traditional Advaita has in it this notion of sifting through your desires and finding the ones that are harmonious. And then actually pursuing desires in a way that moves you forward spiritually. Neo-Advaita is like, get rid of desires, bad, or desires are an illusion, or you are the self, you want nothing, you are complete and whole. Well, there's an ounce of truth to that from traditional Advaita's point of view, but it left me dysfunctional and not able to navigate life and at war with myself. Like, oh, I want to do performance dancing, but oh, that's not spiritual enough. I should just focus all my attention on enlightenment. But oh, I really want to do it. I feel like it's a calling. It's this gift I have. You don't have gifts, you are the self. Like, it's two different languages that are actually contradictory, fundamentally contradictory. And so it puts people at war with themselves. And then Neo-Advaita would say, you cannot be at war with yourself. You are consciousness. You cannot be bound. And Neo-Advaita can say things like that over and over and over, but the long and short of it is, those of us who went down the Neo-Advaita rabbit hole, we experience being bound and being confused and suffering and at war with ourselves. Advaita Vedanta includes authenticity and includes all the aspects of being human, and then has a philosophy that then integrates our humanity and actually takes our desires and points out healthy ways to fulfill the desires that actually allow for spiritual progress. And of course, Neo-Advaita would say, there is no spiritual progress. You are already complete. There's nothing to be gained. Advaita Vedanta, traditional Advaita, would agree that the self, nothing gets added to the self, but there is a process of removing things that cover over the self. So what Neo-Advaita lacks is the sophistication and the language to accurately describe the process of awakening. I saw this Neo-Advaita teacher on Twitter say, there is no enlightenment or unenlightenment. That's just another duality. Well, there's an ounce of truth to that. But the way this person is expressing it to just a group of strangers, it'll create nothing but confusion. All right, beautifuls. Thank you so very much for taking some time. And for anyone who's new to this channel, I have a variety of resources on my website about Neo-Advaita, including links to traditional Advaita Vedanta teachers. And I wish you a Neo-Advaita free day, or a day of recovering from Neo-Advaita. Thank you so much for joining in. Big love.